All right, good evening, everyone. Let's get started. My name is Kevin Tankersley. I teach journalism at Baylor University. Let's introduce everybody. Charlie Brown, Deborah Joan Jones, yes, Ric Cabot Podmore, Sam Davis, Anna Shaw, and Troy Shaw. So first, a big round of applause for all of these folks and their hard work in the movie that we just saw. So a few questions. I'm going to start down there with Anna and Troy. Kind of what was your connection with David, and how did that connection lead to what we just saw, please?
I met David probably, I guess, 97 or 98. I had a band at the time, and we were looking for a place to record some music. And right about that time, he had started working out at Ronnie Griffin at the studio, Largemouth Studios. And so that's when I first met David. And over the course of probably 98 to around 2005, we had recorded like 4 albums out there. I was doing websites at the time, so I did the Largemouth Studio website. I did a website for the Dead Heart Beating Band. So, I mean, that's sort of when I first met David and you know, went out there and recorded quite a few, some music with him over the years. And then I think around, I guess kind of lost contact with him for 5 years or so until Deborah Jones came in the picture. And then David asked me, he said, hey, I'm working with this girl from London. Do you want to do some music videos for us? This artist. What did I say?
Girl.
This girl. This artist.
Well, she did a girl like you, so, you know.
So we produced, I guess 3, 4, 5 music videos with you in the span of about 2 or 3 years. I don't remember. It seems so long ago now. But, and we became good friends with David, especially toward those later years. You know, we'd go to dinner with him. He would come over to dinner with us. We'd go see him play all the time. So we became, you know, really good friends with him, especially in, you know, the last 5 years of his life until he passed away in 2016. So.
And then Anna, you wrote the film. So kind of tell us how that came about, please.
Well, when David passed away in 2016, it was, you know, rough on everyone who knew him. You know, even in our family, it was pretty rough on Troy. Me too, but Troy really took it hard. And I, being kind of the fixer that I am, I had the idea to kind of channel that grief into something productive. Knowing that we had a lot of raw footage from Troy recording at the studio, in the Shed podcast with David Griffith here in front of me. We had all this information as well, all the music videos that he had done with Debs, and I was like, let's try to do something. You know, let's try to put something together. The goal was never to make something sappy. I wanted to make something relevant, something that would honor him, his talent, but I didn't want to be a memorial video. That's something I was really worried it would turn into. And so we started working on it in 2016, 2017. Sam was our first interview, and then it took off from there, and it took a life of its own. It became this huge project that took us all over the United States, and you know, we just kind of turned into that.
You mentioned that you had a lot of footage from the music videos and from your studio, and you had quite a bit of video of David in concert. And so his career was before everybody had cell phones. This was, you know, there was footage from Waterworks and Chelsea Street Pub, which I remember those well, and those were long before the days of cell phone cameras. So how did you come across, how did you find and acquire all of that footage?
When the word was out that we were working on something, on a project about David, people came forward with videos, a lot of pictures. Margie gave us that wonderful footage from Waterworks. And then even Troy used to work for the City of Waco, he had some footage from there. So, you know, everybody would send us, you know, we'd get these random emails sometime with pictures and all of that kind of, you know, we used all of it. And we actually did not have enough. I don't know if you noticed, we had, against my my wish to use stock footage, we had to use stock footage because we ran out of things to use, sadly. We didn't have enough, but we had plenty though, you know.
And a video from Chelsea Street Pub, middle of the film, got some music going on. Oh, there's David Koresh. How did you recognize him? Why did you, because there was no mention of him, it's just, oh, there's his name just flashed across the screen. So how did that come to be and why did you mention him at all?
I'll let Troy talk about that a little bit, but first, a lot of our interviews, a lot of the people we interviewed locally, Johnny Big especially, who was on the Chelsea Street Pub circuit with David, you know, a lot of people talk about seeing David there, and Troy has a connection, Chuck Williams, in town who had some footage, and Troy said, wait a minute, I think Chuck posted a video of.
Yeah, so we were editing that section of the film where they talk about Chelsea Strip Pub, and I was like, we need some footage of this, but there wasn't any. That video is David's not in that video.
Right.
It's just this random band that I saw somebody post like 2 weeks earlier on Facebook, but I couldn't remember who it was, so I kind of searched, and then I realized it was Chuck Williams, who's in the band Common Ground, and Bill Hunter, who's a singer for Common Ground, gave me his information. I sent him a message and said, hey, I noticed you have this video from Chelsea Street Pub. Can I use it? He goes, yeah, I have the DVD. So he sent me the DVD. And he said, oh, yeah, at the 20-minute or whatever mark, there's some video of David Koresh walking by. And I'm like, really? And I'm like,
I got a story.
okay. Well, nobody's going to know who that is when this guy just walking by. So I just thought I would just throw his name on there, just sort of an Easter egg. So that's where we got that footage. We had like 2 hours at Chelsea Street Pub, but we used that one little section because I thought it was a little bit interesting, you know.
Great. Okay, Sam, let's start with you. What have you been doing since your time with David? And everybody else, you're getting the same question. Kind of what have you been doing since your time with David as depicted in the film?
Well, you're talking about what I do for a living, or just?
What have you done to
Everything, just kind of bring us up to speed on what you do and have been doing.
After David went on and played with so many other things, which is great, you know, and I bought a bulldozer.
say tractor, that's what I
I
was.
started building cars and stuff, and I was a farmer too, and I'd play with him, you know, on the side to make some money and have some fun. It just got to where I said, David, I'm making more an hour running this bulldozer than it would take for me to go practice. You know, if I work 3 hours, well, I've already made this, and so find you somebody else. And I think the bulldozer had a lot to do with me not
What's your name?
slowing down on playing. But all of y'all, we do appreciate you. Y'all have always been good fans and made us feel really good. David would tell you the same thing. Gary would tell you that. It was really good. Enjoy it. It's still good.
Rick, briefly tell us what you've been doing.
Well, I kind of enter into the film and nobody really knows where I came from. And so to kind of give you the background on that, I made it my mission to meet the guys in Airborne when I was 18 years old. They were in Denver, they had a record deal, and I was like, okay, this has got to get me somewhere. And so I met those guys in 1979, and Bo Hill liked me. I don't know what kind of magic fairy dust I sprinkled on him, but he liked me, and so I was in tow. Wherever Bo went, I was there for about 3 years. Bo left town. I was going to leave for LA. I didn't leave for LA. I just kept making music, writing music, touring, producing, whatnot. And all of a sudden, several years later, I get a phone call, and it's David, and he says, you know, I've seen all this work you've done. I need to start sending you stuff. And, you know, if you feel you can remix it and do better than me, what have you. And out of that, then Bo called me with the same kind of thing. So it was kind of like I went through years without talking to these guys. on a daily basis, and the next thing I know, we're all collaborating again. So that's kind of what happened. And David made a few trips up to Denver, did some guitar work for me, and I was fortunate enough that Sam and Margie and Gary asked me to restore the Groove Kings recordings. They sent me all this stuff, and so I was very blessed to do that as well.
Okay, thanks. Deborah, what have you been doing since
Since David
this?
passed away, or since the film? Well,
Yes.
I'm going to say since David got sick, because we had been releasing our album.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'd think I'd know how to use a microphone, wouldn't you? So we were releasing our Taste It Twice album. I think that Falling Down, that was at the end of the film, is on that. David got sick, and we were supposed to start promoting, and it just felt, it wasn't right. It wasn't right for me. I wasn't feeling it. He was unwell. And then unfortunately, you know, he passed away, and I was obviously devastated. And I thought, well, I'm not doing this without him. And I continued to write because that's what I do. I write. And a couple of years ago, I thought, you know, I need to get back to it. It's time. I was grieving. So I didn't want to work with anybody else. And so I looked at my songs that were sat there not being brought to life, and I thought, I need to work on this. So I found some musicians, and we've been doing some stuff together, but I'm about to start recording again, and I want to really blow up the stuff that I did with David, because I want it out there. The Steel and Wishes stuff, his vocals with mine, sublime. His guitar solos on those songs, you know. So I want that music broadly distributed, and I think that if I do a new project and I can push new music out there, people will look for my stuff that I've done in the past and they'll find David.
You mentioned, Charlie, just a second. You mentioned, we were talking before, earlier, that in the music video shot on top of the building in downtown Waco, what can you see in the background?
That was Daryl Huddleston's building that he let us use for that. And in the background, you'll see the ugly old silos, which are now very pretty. And a landmark now. of
Tax
Waco.
dollars.
Y'all were so far, you were so far ahead of the curve.
Oh,
Both
yeah.
of us, so far.
I like to think we made them famous first.
Absolutely, yes. Charlie, tell us where you've been up to, please.
Well, my second spouse, Jackie, passed 10 days before David did. So I was in a big well of grieving during that time myself. Got to visit David in the hospital that last week. Last week my spouse was alive. Got to meet Zach for the first time. I was floored. Thought I was seeing David all over again. I came to Waco in '71, moved from Oak Cliff in Dallas, and just was enthralled by him the first time I ever saw him. And I didn't really get with him, know much about him until 2 or 3 years later when I was down in Sam Houston in '74 and '75, and I started coming around him, going for a vocational teacher's degree. That is, I'd want to be. I was in school with 18-year-olds in Sam Houston, and they were a bunch of little brats. So I didn't want to go back to high school and start teaching kids 2 years younger than that. So I called David one day, went for a glass of tea, and told him I wanted to buy a PA and music coming sound in it. Went and did that. So that's how I became part of him. But when he passed away, I was already deep in kidney problems. So I was already being very ill in a lot of ways myself, and I didn't do anything about it until my spouse passed away. And then I was able, so for the next 3 or 4 years, I was spending out in hospitals dealing with that, heart attacks and whatever. But I just got old. That's what it was. I gave up music, and I'm going to tell you, music will keep a person younger than anything I've ever found in the world. And the day I gave it up was the day I can't walk anymore. And I'm not going to say I hate it, but I can't be more proud. I grew up in Oak Cliff. Steve Ray Vaughan sat behind me in junior high. I got to watch him and his brother play as kids for 50 cents at the local church gymnasium when they were teenagers, not having any idea what they were going to become. Bob Will's brother Ray was my guitar teacher. So I've been around music in so many ways that to go off and try to become a vocational teacher just wasn't going to cut it. And to become in the music business and be involved in David's life and have David be in my life, I could not have been any more luckier. Because I was not a sound man. I never did sound before I got to David. And I knew what I liked in music. I listened to music. I'm apparently listen to it different than other people. Because I listened to it the way it is on the album. That's what I did. Like the man said that about me on the video. He got me because that is what I did. I strove to make it sound like the album. I strove to make it sound as good or better than the band that played the band. And like I talked about David, David could do anything. And I was blessed, period. And so now what I've done is I've moved out here. I'm living on a milk farm out here between Golson and Ross in a scorpion house. I find at least 10, 12 scorpions a year. I know what it's like to be stung by a scorpion. It hurts. It's not bad. It hurts. But I've had to give up. I just spent 5 hours a day in dialysis because I gave up and started doing dialysis a couple of weeks ago. My kidneys have finally don't want to do what they're supposed to do. So I'm just at a point in my life, I'm fixing to be 72 this year. Proud I'm still alive. I never would have thought back in the days that I was driving on the highway, coming into town the other day to do some things, working on something, going to the store, so I borrowed Lane's car. And Fleet Boy came on. I'm thinking back 1974, and I'm thinking back to Sam Houston and my house, and I used to put on 2 or 3 different albums. That was one of them that I cleaned my house to. And I'm just thinking to myself, 50 years, Charlie. 50 freaking years. I'm old. But I had a great life, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, you can ask Monique for that. Unique Monique.
Oh, she was cute.
Yeah, she remembers.
But she
you.
was a playmate, I'm gonna tell you, she was cute. First playmate I ever met was I went to see the Harlem Globetrotters when I was about 12 years old. Walked up on this girl that probably wasn't 5'4". More freckles than I could ever see in my life. I'm going, what? And I went back and looked at her picture and I'm going, uh-oh, this ain't right. This ain't right. And it wasn't the girl I saw in the picture. That's when I first started looking at playmates. But Monique was a little bit different. Monique was a little bit different. But her sisters, all her sisters, they would come. They were all like 18 to 14. They looked just like her. They were gorgeous. They had the legs, they had the body. We had to put them in the corner of the club and set people around them to keep the guys that were 18 and over from going and messing with them. And that was the funniest part about it. Every time they came to the clubs, that was something else. But she went on her own way and they went on to that. But that was just part of that. But I've just gotten an old guy and I've enjoyed my life. I enjoyed it. I'm so thankful to y'all. I'm a star. You made me feel like a star.
You are a star.
You give me something. I really didn't ever go out there. I really didn't. I tried to just do my job the way I knew how to do it, the best I could do it. But you made me feel special. So thank God for that. And thank y'all for coming up and viewing this for David. Thank y'all for being David's people. Because without y'all, well, David would have still been David. But y'all made it special. So thank you.
Okay, thank you all. In watching the film, Sam, Rick, Deborah, Charlie, did you learn anything new about David?
Bruce?
That you didn't know?
Bruce? Who the hell is
Did I
Bruce?
say Bruce?
No, I said, I'm saying Bruce. Who the hell is Bruce? David Bruce Zychek? I never knew his name was Bruce, I'm sorry.
His middle name.
I lived in a hotel room with this guy, I didn't know his name was Bruce.
What did y'all learn? Did you know everything already? Rick, what did you learn?
Well, first of all, I'm acquainted quite closely with the band Night Ranger, and I had a conversation with David about his time in Night Ranger, and while he had fun doing it and stuff like that, he told me that he really didn't know if those guys respected him, or even liked him. And when I saw the film and I saw how Kelly and Brad were, I was like, wow, he didn't really get it somehow or some way or what have you, but they were enamored with him and they loved him.
We should have known.
And, he didn't feel that, he didn't think they disrespected him or they hated him or anything like that, but he just kind of felt like he was like the outsider, in that whole deal. And so that's what I learned, is that I think they had a closer bond than even he knew.
What touched me was his, the way his parents encouraged him as a child to play music, and provided him with guitars and got him hooked up with that stuff.
Grandma.
Right? Exactly, thanks to Grandma, she started it all. But they bought him beautiful guitars for Christmas, and they encouraged him to go play in bands. They let him play when he was young, and they said, go on then, off with the older boys and play. They didn't try to stop him, and they really encouraged it. And although, you know, it talks about how his father wanted him to go to college, what came before that really was so much love and support for music. Being a musician myself and growing up in a large family where nobody else in my family did music, except for my father, but not professionally. There were so many things that I wanted to do, and I appreciate looking at what they did for him, because they really set him on the road he needed to be on. Yeah, he needed that. So that was lovely to see that.
Charlie's going to learn anything besides Bruce.
Well, I guess what I really learned is most of the time, since I've known David for my life and what time I did have with him, there was a point at which me and David kind of had our splitting of the ways. And that was probably 5th, 6th year of Group Kings. People would ask me, why can't David be bigger than what he is? Why didn't something happen for David? David didn't like nobody messing with his music, period. He didn't like people dealing with it. He didn't want somebody else telling him how to do his music. Just the way he talked about doing that lead solo thing, and the band couldn't handle it. It was too good. But listening to this and listening to everybody talk about David and how he was, and that let me know that I'm really not lying about that. That he was happy with who he was. He was happy with what he did. He did so much. You get him in a room live. It's like for me, I couldn't be a studio engineer. That wasn't me. Me was live. That's what I did. That's where I heard myself. You know, I get in the studio. George Blackshear, I tried to help with Mockingbird a few times. Everything I ever recorded, he re-recorded. I couldn't hear it right. So, I mean, but I wanted so much for David to do big things, but at the same time, I'm very fortunate that I was able to be with him in the little things. And I'll never regret living the life I lived. I may regret what I was able not to do for my family. But hey, they're all still alive. Because, you know, my 8th great grandbaby's coming up, so it's just where life's at now. So to know that I wasn't saying a falsehood about him, I guess is the way to say it. That's what I felt like I got from the people that said that, where I would say this about David. It wasn't that he was stingy or proud of that. He liked to make his music sound like his music. And real quick, I did one. He gave me a tape of the Airborne album with no lyrics on it. I took it in. I was listening to Optimistical in the studio. I was in George's Mockingbird Studios, so I made my own tape of it because he wanted that tape back. That was his tape. So as I listened to Optimistical, I started paying attention to the end of the song. If you have the album, go home and listen to it. You got to do it this way to make it right. So what I did was I took the volume knobs as I was recording. As it went to the end, I just kept it one volume all the way to the very end note, like it's just a continuous, just strong lead, like it's in the middle of the song. And we're going to Septic Hall. I'm in the van, in the Jeep, and I've got the Pioneer. I throw the tape in. I'm going down the road. I'm kind of looking at him. It's getting to the end of that song, and it's just screaming in this Jeep, and I got it turned up. And we're just going. He starts looking around. Who did that? And I said, I did, David. He says, well, that's how I wanted it. And I said, David, who's been your sound man for the last 30 years? I know your music. Yes, that's what I heard too. And that's just a quick thing to say. That was just something I picked up on from him, that I did something for him that he wanted to, and it's just because I felt that from him in the early years that made me decide to go search him out and say, I want to learn how to run sound, and this is the man I want to learn how to run sound. And for us to go to Denver and meet with those other 4 guys, now Danny the drummer, it took 3 gin gillets for him to play a 4/4 measure. Everybody else in the band was just strong as hell, but he could still play drum. He could do 5/4 measures without it, but that's all orchestra music and stuff like that. But I was just fortunate to meet people so talented and have a band like we had for a couple of years. And Yes was my band. I got to go work in a band that played Yes. Man, I was on top of the world.
All right. Troy and Anna, the film was 2 hours. Was there anything that you wanted to put into the film that just ended up on the digital cutting room floor?
Now, let's do the test of, do we know each other or do we know each other? Yes, yes. One of the things that stayed on the cutting room floor, and that was originally in the script, that story that Charlie just, is that what you were gonna say? Yeah. The story that Charlie just talked about with Optimistical, of him messing with the end of the song and being in a call with David, and David saying, oh my gosh, that's how I wanted this song to be. What did you do to it? So that is one of the things that stayed on the cutting room floor.
I mean, originally, when we first started working on this, we were thinking, oh, hopefully we can get to an hour, you know. And then all of a sudden we start editing it and it was like 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm like, well, this is way too long for a documentary about somebody that nobody knows. So we had to start just cutting some stuff. I can't think of anything specific, but that is one of the stories that we had to take out. We had to leave the Playboy story in because it was just too good. It was just too good.
One of the things that our kids wanted on the cutting room floor was the eyebrow thing that Charlie does. Our daughters especially like, ew, take that out, it's gross. But we decided to keep it. And I think the audience...
Men will be men and boys will be boys.
But so that's one of the things that we truly debated, cutting or keeping. And we decided to keep it. I wanted to keep it because I thought it was, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the audience loves it every time we get a big laugh.
It's one of my favorite stories.
Is there anybody you wanted to talk to for the film that you just couldn't track down, couldn't find, you just didn't work out?
We reached out to Larry Stewart, who was with Airborne and was unsuccessful in getting an answer. And we talked to Keith Olsen a few times over the phone, and we were invited to go interview him in Lake Tahoe. And it was right before COVID, and we did make the trip there, thinking we'll go after COVID, and he sadly passed away. So that's one of the interviews that was scheduled to happen, it didn't happen.
For you four, what was the most emotional part of the film?
We're gonna get a double.
All of it, for me. Playing with the guy since '72, and I knew him since '68. But then we started playing in '72, so I've known everything, all these years. So, no, nothing really surprised me too much. What I thought it would be like. I do wish he'd have called Bill Ham back. My God, that's bad.
I walked through Mockingbird Airport up in Dallas, walking by a room one day, and there's a sign out front, the Ham Brothers. And our kids stopped and we listened to them play for a little bit. Now that was back in the early '60s, so that was.
See, old man right down the road.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that. I know them people too early in my life.
Rick, anything in the film that jumped out at you emotionally?
Well, as I said, it was kind of a full circle thing for me with David and with Bo, with the fact that years later, they came to me and wanted me to do work for them. And so when I see all of this going on, I'm like, I couldn't have been more blessed to have been in a situation at 18, 19 years old with these guys who were rock stars. They were signed to a record deal, and I'm in the studio doing, crazy work. But that's really the thing for me, is that, that my life became fulfilled through the fact that I met these guys when I was so young, and they taught me very, very, very well. And so I'm very, very thankful, very blessed that I even got to be part of any of this.
Deborah?
I definitely enjoyed the in the shed parts. Well done.
Thank you.
Just because I miss talking to him and hearing him talking about things, it's like he's still here. And you hear his voice and he's sighing. And I think, I have many, many, many moments where I want to call him and ask him something. It's the usual thing when we lose somebody. But I'll have it when I'm listening to a track that we recorded together and I go, oh, oh, I can't call him. I want to call him because I want to say, how did you do that? Or, oh, I just heard this new thing in the song that, and I can't tell him how much I admire him and love what he did.
To piggyback on what Debs is saying, and to go back to an earlier question, at times we struggled with what are we going to put on screen when he talks about this or that. And I had the idea, and also I've taught French to students with learning disabilities. So I'm always very aware that sometimes you have to switch the medium, or sometimes you have to switch the tempo of what you're trying to say to get people with attention issues back into, paying attention. So I thought about using those audio clips, but also putting the words on the screen, and it ended up really working. And the people love hearing his voice and also reading, and just kind of pausing where you just have to concentrate on his voice and his words.
I just want to add to that. I think it's because we see David. We can see him doing that thing where he's plugged into the electricity. Who said that? Prater. We see that,
Don't get
right?
me started on him.
Right? But when he's talking about things, that's him, and that's our friend, that's David. So that's so nice to have that we have that. He's there. Yeah, thank you for that.
Charlie, what did you find emotional about the film?
Well, the emotion came, I probably cried 4 to 5 times the first time I saw it. I only cried twice tonight. That's my emotional. I cannot, I did not expect something like this in my life. I expect to see something like this in my life to feel like I feel about it. You guys did something heroic for me. And it was for David, but it wound up being for me too. And I thank y'all for that, because, all the people that were part of our lives during that time. I'm just emotional about David, period. I never got involved in David's real life. My life with David was his musical life, and that's what I cared about, and that's what I wanted to do for him, was to be that transponder between him and the audience. And that's what I ever did about doing sound. I wanted to make the bands on stage available to the audience in a way they'd never seen before. And to do that for David, and to have that position in David's life for several years was great. It was just heartwarming. It was just, I could not have had a better time in the music business. All the people I've been involved with, been around, been associated with, his was the one. And I'm so proud I was a part of it. And like I say, cried about 4 or 5 times, only cried twice tonight.
You're getting there.
But it got me. It got me. So I thought it was done very well.
It was very emotional for me when I was editing, or when we were editing this thing. Especially toward the end, like every time there's that one scene where Falling Down is playing, the acoustic version, and then he's walking in the studio and he has his little mandolin or whatever he's playing. Like every time we would get to that point, I would tear up. I don't know what it was, because I've been in that studio so many times, and just to see him standing there in the studio, it's just still like, it affects me so much. It's crazy. And then from that point on, it's just like, sometimes we'd have to stop. I just couldn't do it anymore,
Well, I felt really cheated. I'm going to do one more comment. I felt really cheated. My spouse, Jackie, was in a rehab over here in Belmead during the last show at Tucker Hall. And she was really bad that day. And she kept telling me to go, and I wouldn't, because, I'm that way with women. If you're buying, I'm that way with you. That's just who I was. And so I didn't get to see his last shows. And I wanted to go there, just like this is what gave me my great hurrah here, because you allowed me to still come see people again that were a part of that, and were a part of his life. And that's what I'm so thankful to you for about that, because I didn't get to see that last show of it. I wanted so bad to go, just to go see the people, just to go be one more time of that. But when you deal with tragedy in your family and sickness and like that, it's all of what you put into it and how you deal with it. And that night I made a decision to stay home instead of go. And I forever wish I hadn't. I love you, Jackie. I truly love you, but I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd have gone. I wish I'd gone and checked it out. I think it would have been a great night. But this has been as much of that and more than I could ever thought from it. So, thank you.
Questions from everybody out here? Now, think about your question. I know we all have memories. We saw David here, we saw David here. So don't share memories right now, but do we have any questions for any of these folks?
Hannah, the writing is fabulous.
Thank you.
Excellent. No question.
Thank you so much.
Where does Sonny live? Where does Sonny live? Now, we're talking about Sonny Ortiz, was a conga player for Texas
Sonny,
Electric.
he lives
right?
in Atlanta.
He's, he's with,
Widespread panic. Yeah, the narration was
Kyle
done.
Pilgrim went to Atlanta and
Okay.
put the club there. So him and Powell were out there. I just wondered, 'cause I've always wondered where he lived.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was one thing
He
that
lives
got me.
in
I didn't see
Georgia.
Sonny in a long time.
Yes, sir.
Deborah, is your music available and where can we find it?
Stealing Wishes albums, I think pretty much everything we recorded is available on streaming devices, so you can just, ask Alexa to play Stealing Wishes. A Girl Like You, I'm pretty sure that's only available on YouTube.
It is.
I
The
don't think,
video,
All the music, all the
Yeah.
videos are on YouTube.
yeah, we didn't, if we released it as a single, I can't remember what we did. But yeah, you can find it there.
Would
Thanks
there
for asking.
be, I know this sounds from, or would there be CDs available anywhere?
I don't have CDs. If I have demand for CDs, I'll certainly make some.
Okay.
I would.
Because I know one CD equals 5,000 streams or whatever it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah, physical merchandise, we would have done it, as I said, we were at the promotion, we were at the about to promote stage, and the timing was off. David was like, you do it, and I was like, I didn't want to do it without him. It was just weird. He was sick, and I didn't know what was happening, so it was just a strange time. It was like pause, and then we never pressed play on it. So yeah, it could be, but it could be. I would love to do it because I want to do, it's a great way to remember him and to spread the music around and let people hear it, because that project really hasn't been heard widely. So,
But you can stream, you should be able to stream it.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
thank you.
Did y'all contact anybody at such a call for comments or?
We didn't. A lot of people reference the place, and that's why, and that's one of the things that, as producers, we pause and wanted to talk about it, obviously, because a lot of people talk about it, but we were being careful in keeping focus on David and the story, and I felt that it would have been maybe a diversion. So we did talk about it, and we talked about where it's located, and I know that's something Troy wanted probably to talk more about than me, so I won. But not to say it's not a wonderful place, and I know people are fiercely loyal to that place and to whatever, all the great things that happen there. But I made the decision not to talk about it for too long. Again, we wanted to keep it under 2 hours.
yeah, I mean, we could do a documentary on such a call. Really, that could be its own separate documentary, so to speak.
Close to the end of the film, several folks talked about David and how his career kind of panned out. And, was he a success? Could there have been a different kind of success? How do you define success? And I'll open that up to everybody, and then, thanks. I wrote that question is written in pencil, and while we were talking about it on the screen, I walked to the back and I wrote myself a note. How do we define success? Rick, you look like you were dying to say something, believe it or not.
Oh, boy. Well, I've had kind of a parallel to David's kind of career. Whereas I was involved in a terrible management deal at one point. Greatest lesson I ever learned in my life was, you don't get out of a contract by showing somebody the dirt under your middle fingernail. That never works. And I've had, I've had opportunity after opportunity where it looked like, oh, this is it, this is it, this is it, and it doesn't come through. My way of dealing with all of that, and to keep going and to keep pressing for, Deborah will tell you, what am I trying to win?
Grammys.
She'll tell you. And I keep focused every day knowing that my success is not the amount of money I have, not any of the trophies. It's the fact that I'm doing exactly what I love to do. And so that's how I believe that success is defined. There are wonderful, wonderful things that come from monetary rewards or what have you, but I'm here to tell you that I am very, very, very thrilled and very happy with my life. And there are a lot of things, including the fact that I get to say something, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, but the way that I have been promoting this film, like on the airplane getting down here or what have you, somebody will ask me, well, what are you doing now? And I say, I'm in a movie with Ted Nugent. And their eyes get this big, and they go, what? And when you, but when you start to put that piece with all sorts of other things that are very unique to my career. I mean, there are things that have been so unique to my career. One being the fact that I was asked to write the theme song for the Colorado Rockies Major League Baseball team. In that process, the owner of the team, a billionaire, came to the studio to meet me personally. That doesn't happen to other people. That just doesn't happen. There's all sorts of these things that I just kind of sit there and go, okay, I'm successful because I'm doing what I love to do and good things continue to happen to me. And so to answer the question and to parallel it to the film and everything like that, I believe that's how David was. I really truly think that he just loved to be playing music, performing music, loving music. But you also saw that, and I whispered into Deborah's ear while it went by, was that part of the narrative is that he found touring with Night Ranger to be difficult and taxing. And guess what? His big thing about Airborne, Bo wanted to be in the studio, David wanted to be on the road. Kind of be careful what you ask for, because, that's kind of the thing. He got what he wanted in that situation, and it wasn't exactly everything he wanted. So I really truly believe that in this all, David was just happy being in a place where he felt he had control of things and he could play the music he wanted to play.
Okay, thank you. How do we define success?
Well, it's an interesting point. So I have a few things to say about this, but I'll say them quickly.
Because I didn't.
Yeah. So you can look at the people in his industry, in his profession, the names that are in this film. They loved David and thought that you hear their words, the way they speak about him. So by his group, he was valued. They saw him. And his value. That was successful. That's success. He had a following, a die-hard following, all of his career. And those people have been watching the movie and want to watch the movie, and etc. So people are still showing up for him now. No, he didn't have fame like Ted Nugent had. Yes, he wanted it. But I knew him personally, and I can tell you that when we were promoting Stealing Wishes, we had A&R people from Universal Music courting us. I had many meetings with many different people, and David was all about that. He wanted us signed and he wanted us making money. But he also said to me one day, and this doesn't have anything to do with music, and it's very personal, so don't remember this bit and don't record it, but he said to me one day, Deborah, I'd just be happy flipping burgers if I could be with you all the time. We were working to try to be together. You know, I had kids in England, his kids were here. And our music was a vehicle to be together, as well as, you know, what we both wanted in our careers. But when he said that to me, and I suppose I should have said, "Oh, that's so sweet." I said, "Flipping burgers? You're not flipping burgers. Get out there with your guitar." No way. So I fully supported him in doing that. And yes, he was successful because look what he's done. And look at all of the people that he brought together. My life was enriched knowing him. I don't know if you know, but I'm an honorary Texan. Just ask the Griffin family. I have been since 2009.
Starting to sound like one.
He was a success. You know, look, he changed my world. Did he change yours?
Yeah.
I think that's the measure of success. He lived. We're happy he was alive. He made a difference.
Tell us about his children. One of the reasons he kept coming.
Well, it's just like beating night ranger behind the movie theater over there. Or whatever. And they had me out they were in their bus and they got me over by myself. They just saying, "Why doesn't David want to play with us?" You want me to tell you? Yeah, what's the deal? I mean, God, it's great. I said, this is kids. He doesn't want to leave his boy. He ain't gonna do it. You mean that's why he's doing what he's doing? Yep. And he didn't go. I mean, he finished up the tour he had, but he quit. He loved being with his kids. That was his thing. Around here, it suited him just fine.
So was it successful?
Yes.
Yes, shoot chat. He had a good time doing it. He was good at it. You know, playing with him was it was a trip. You better get on the train and ride.
Billie Jean King, do you get that out of it? Anybody see that? You gotta see certain pictures of David, he looked like Billie Jean King, I'm sorry.
With the shorts.
Charlie Brown, Deborah Joan Jones, Ric Cabot Podmore,
Ron,
Rick, I am so sorry.
You need your glasses?
Ric Cabot Podmore, Sam Davis, Anna Shaw, Troy Shaw, thank y'all all very much for what you did on
Thank
the
you.
screen today.
Thank you.
And thank y'all for coming.
Thank you for coming, folks.
thank all of you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Everybody be comfortable going home, we live in Waco. Not a safe place to drive.